if you don't mind moving the slide over. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today in this presentation, which will be hosted by Professor Randy Nordell from the American River University. This session is really about overcoming challenges in teaching Microsoft Office applications effectively in an online or hybrid environment, or whatever that might be for you. And so if you don't mind going to the next slide, thank you, Afsana. We are going to do just a tiny little bit of housekeeping first. Then I'm just going to let you know a little bit more about our fantastic speaker today, and a huge thank you to Professor Nordell for joining us. It is, and I hope I can say this, it is 4 o'clock in the morning where Randy is. So we're very, very thankful and pleased to have him join us. So I'll just hand over to Afsana just to do a little bit of housekeeping first, and then we'll return and get straight into the session.
Thank you, Mona. So as Mona mentioned, I'll just go over a few things just to make sure the experience on the webinar today is as seamless as possible. So I will be on here moderating along with my colleague Bea. So we'll be in the chat box and the Q&A, answering any questions, any comments that might come through, and just making sure your comments are answered. Just a few things to bear in mind whilst you're on the webinar today. So if you are experiencing any kind of connectivity issues, please do just kind of bear in mind that it could be your internet connection. So we do recommend calling in using your phone. Obviously, if you're calling using your PC, that's absolutely fine as well. Any kind of high bandwidth platforms that you might be using in the home could be impacting the connection as well. Of course, as Mona mentioned, if you do miss any parts of the session, we are recording this and we'll be circulating it afterwards as well. Like I mentioned, do use the Q&A box and the chat box to answer any questions, and we will have opportunities throughout the webinar to answer those as well. And finally, so on the left-hand side, you should be able to see the Q&A box. So any questions you have, please drop them in there. And then the chat box is more for general comments as well. So if you have any technical issues or just any general comments that Randy might question you about, just feel free to use that box there as well. And there is a polling function on the side if you decide to use that as well. Back over to you, Mona.
Thank you so much, and please feel free to chat your questions in. Today we're going to focus a lot of time, I believe, on Excel, but there are many of you on the line who also teach other Microsoft applications. So if you have questions, comments, anything, Professor Nordell very kindly does enjoy becoming, and having a much more interactive session. So please feel free to chat those in, and I have permission to interrupt throughout the session. So we look forward to your comments. So just quickly before we get started and I throw over to Professor Nordell, we're delighted to have Randy join us today. He is a professor of business technology at the American River College in Sacramento. Now, from what I understand, Randy really works with faculty in many different places and experiencing many of the same challenges that we all have in teaching applications online. So he is an absolute expert when it comes to not just teaching these applications, but also in overcoming challenges around how we teach, everything from sort of that hybrid to face-to-face and online. Professor Nordell is the lead author of our In Practice series and has been working with us for quite a few years, I believe, in creating some fantastic series around the latest being Microsoft Office 365, and they're the In Practice series, as well as 2016, 2013, and the author of 101 Tips for Online Course Success, which is a fantastic resource. So without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Professor Nordell. Just thank him very much for his time and look forward to your comments and contributions throughout. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, Morwenna, and glad all of you were able to make it today. Again, I'm a professor at American River College in Sacramento, California. I've been teaching for over 30 years. I teach a variety, some business computer application courses, but I'm still full-time in the class as well as writing the textbooks and SimNet and working with professors like you around the country, primarily excited to be out of the country now with some of you. So I've taught in online, hybrid, face-to-face format throughout the years, pretty much all my classes. And now we're transitioned, like many of you, to fully remote learning, and we will be next semester also. And that's something you guys could put in the chat box and type and tell me, you know, are you going to be fully remote next semester, online, combination, face to face? So anyhow, if you have questions along the way, I'm gonna demo SimNet, which is our learning and evaluation platform that we use with the Office applications. We'll look at Excel primarily, but we will, I'll show you all that. So if you have questions about SimNet, any of the content, please let me know. Break in, type in the question, and Morena will interrupt and we'll discuss that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video, and then I'm going to share my screen, and we will get going here. If I can minimize some of these windows. So I'm going to go to SimNet on the student side. So SimNet does integrate with the different LMSs. I know Blackboard and Brightspace, Desire to Learn, some of those. So Canvas, and that, which is currently what I use. But anyway, I'm going to show you from the student side where the student would go into the course and find my transitioning to online course here. And I've set this up in the folders here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through and show you the different types of gradable objects. SimNet is a great resource, especially for teaching remotely, but I use it in all my classes, whether they're hybrid, face-to-face, or total online. I use SimNet for that. So I'm going to walk through and show you kind of the gradable objects and the flexibility within SimNet. I work with, hundreds of professors around the country, and everybody does it a little differently, and that's the beauty of SimNet. You can customize the content to meet the needs of your class, your students, your own teaching style, whatever modality you're teaching in. All of that is customizable. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Excel here. And we have quite a few different objects. I'm going to start with the Sim book. So the Sim book is basically one-to-one content with the printed book. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up here. So if you open up the Sim book, it's going to look and feel a lot like the printed textbook, and one-to-one content with it. The advantage of the Sim book is not only can you zip around, you have table of contents here to move around quickly, but within the Sim book are these show me, guide me, let me try. And this is one of the unique pedagogy things about the In Practice textbook, our series of books, is my whole purpose behind writing the book was transferability of skills, having students be able to learn something, apply it, and then apply it in a different context and be able to transfer that. So we use what's called the TIP approach, topic, instruction, practice. And topic is whatever topic we're talking about, using multiple operators in a formula, for example, here. And we try to keep the text fairly minimal in here of the writing part of it, because I don't know if your students are the same as mine, but they're not going to read this stuff. They're not going to read the text much. So that's the topic. The instruction, what we did is we put it in how-tos and we make it generic. So we don't embed it into a project, the instruction. That was probably one of my biggest frustrations with some of the other textbooks, is that the instructions the teaching part of it would get so embedded inside of a project that students would just click and click and click, and all of a sudden they'd get to the end of the project and have no idea what they did. So in the instruction part, we have how-tos in here, and we pull it out and make it more generic. So it's really almost like a resource guide. And then the practice are the projects that they do, the projects throughout the chapter, the end of chapter projects, and even the simulated content here. So with many of the how-tos, we have this simulated show me, guide me, let me try content. And show me is a video, and it will walk them through this, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear on there.
Type the equal sign to start the formula.
But they could skip ahead to the different parts there. And so nice and clear. Then they can go, if they want, to the guide me. The guide me basically is a click path and tells them where to go. This is all simulated content and kind of tells them what to type, exactly what to do. For my students, this is the first thing I assigned is the sim book, and I like a lesson because there's about 20 of these these interactive activities built into the chapter. The let me tries are the ones the students have to complete. So all they have to do is enter the formula there in the cell. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So.
Oh, and just while you're doing that,
yeah.
Professor Noodle, I have a great question coming through around what and how you overcome potentially students using different versions of Office. So if that's something that you could touch on, that would be fantastic.
That's a great question. So I will jump ahead to that because that is relevant. We for different versions, most of our students in the States get Office 365 free. So it's the most current version, constantly updating. The update channels, are set by the college or university they're attending, but that doesn't even matter that much. A lot of our schools in their labs, which schools that used to be open that aren't open anymore, but in the labs, most of them had 2019, the on-premises one-time purchase version. Some even had 2016. So what we do is on the current version, on the Office 365 content, we in SimNet, we make sure that it works with Office 2019 or 365. If it's going back to like 2016, if you think, okay, our computer labs on campus have 2016, or a lot of most of our students do, you'll probably want to use the 2016 content in there. And then that content is forward compatible with both 2019 and 365. The current content, 365/2019 content in SimNet, we don't necessarily make it backwards compatible. Most of it would work with 2016. There might be a few new features in the 365 that weren't available in 2016, such as the if-else statement in Excel. So we work closely as an author and author team. I work closely with Triad. Triad are the developers of SimNet, and we call it the Triad Advantage because we are constantly monitoring the changes that are being pushed out in 365, because 365 is the subscription version that's always growing. 2019 is static. So as soon as 2019 was released, it was fairly the same as 365, but 365 continues to grow away from 2019. So wherever there's that gap between the content or the instructions or a button's different name or whatever, we make those notes in the projects. And I'm going to get to the projects in just a little bit. We make those notes in the projects. So saying, hey, if you're using 2019, this is going to be the name of the button, or this is whatever, where the tab is located or the group is located or whatever the situation may be. But we do take into account students using different versions. And also we have Mac instructions for everything, with the exception of Access, of course, because there is no Mac on Access. So yeah, Triad Advantage, we are constantly making changes, and we roll out, if something changes in Office 365 where there is something has been changed to make a discrepancy between the 2019 and 365 product, we will make those change almost immediately. As soon as we're alerted to it or find it, we'll go in, make project, add in either a note or make changes in the project instructions, and they're usually live that day. Or we try to be really, really responsive on it. And the main reason, and I mean, this is somewhat selfish on my part, is I don't want 50 students emailing me telling me some project instructions are wrong when I, get up on Monday morning and see my email. So, and I think all of us professors are the same way. We want it to work. So we work really, really hard on the back end so that on the front end, it works for you and your students. So sorry, Miranda, long answer to a short little question, but the Triad Advantage is a huge part of our product.
No, that's wonderful. I have one more question, which I'll just pop in now, and then just feel free to address that when you can. Just a question around, we've got a colleague here who's had some trouble with maybe the platforms that they've been using incorrectly grading. So that's been a problem. So if you're able to address that at some point, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I will. You know what? I will put that on hold because I will get to that when we get to the SimNet projects. So, which is just a couple items down the road. So, but I will talk about that because that is an issue because we want our projects to grade correctly. And but I will talk about that and even show you an example of what that looks like in SimNet. So SimBooks, I first thing I assign to my students, they're fairly low stakes. They are in a simulated environment, but it looks and feels like the actual desktop application. So, for example, I can click around in here, even though simulated environment looks and feels. I can pull down menus. I can do all sorts of things. I can go to the backstage view and all of that without being marked wrong. It's not till I actually apply something that's incorrect that it marks me as incorrect. And it's mastery learning in that it's going to tell them what to do. It's going to be really specific about leading them forward. So everything that we do in our textbook and SimBook and SimNet is to try to lead students forward, have them take one step forward at a time. So SimBook, fairly easy mastery learning, and that's the first thing I assign as kind of a lesson. We do have some lessons also, but so that's the SimBook, and the students can again go through page by page that way, then table of contents. But the second thing I assign are what are called pause and practice projects. And this is part of our TIP approach, topic instruction practice. Every 2 to 3 student learning outcomes, we have a pause and practice project built into the chapter. So these projects are not auto-graded in SimNet. I do assign them to my students and I hand grade these projects. I have them upload to Canvas, the LMS that we use. And the data files are embedded in here for the students, really detailed instructions. These are what are considered guided type projects where they are very hand-holding projects telling students what to do and how to do it. Again, we're just trying to take students one step at a time and get them closer to learning and transferability of skills. And so lots of screenshots, lots of detailed instructions. These pause and practice projects build on each other throughout the chapter. There are typically 3 to 5 pause and practice projects per chapter, and so I don't grade all five because they build on each other. I have them, as they go to the next one, it says, hey, open up that last file that you used and continue on. And so I just have them email me the final solution file, and I do hand grade these. I kind of rough grade them because, again, it's still in the formative process where students are still learning, but they're really good practice projects because they take it in smaller chunks. These projects are in smaller chunks, and they cover what was previous, or they allow students to practice what was previously covered in the chapter. So that's the second thing I typically assign in my classes are the pause and practice projects. So I start with the SimBooks, and that's kind of assigned as lessons, fairly low stakes. And then the pause and practice projects, a little higher stakes. And these pause and practice projects, they do work in the live desktop application. So it's not a simulated environment for those. I try to minimize the simulated environment students work in. There are some other ones I'll show you as we go along. The next thing that I do, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the sim book here. And this is where we'll circle back to the question that we just had. I'm going to go back to my classes here. And projects. So this is the next thing, and we'll get to the grading, the accuracy of the grading, and kind of the efficacy of that. So SimNet projects, I typically assign 2 per chapter. We have at the office level content in SimNet, we have 3 SimNet projects per chapter, 1 guided project, which are the more detailed instructions, and 2 independent projects, which are still give detailed instruction, but take away some of that instructional scaffolding. So it doesn't tell them, like the guided projects will tell them what to do and how to do it. Independent projects tell them what to do, but not specifically how to do it. So again, 1 step at a time, we're taking them along the way and trying to get them to be competent in the skills that they're applying and to be able to take those skills and transfer them to a different context. So students start in the projects here, students have a start file. If they're using a Mac machine, it'll automatically detect that and switch to Mac instructions down here. So, and screenshots for Mac and all that. But I'm going to go ahead and download a start file here, and notice it's coded with the student's name at the beginning of it, just to help, students if they're sharing computers with somebody so they don't plagiarize basically and use somebody else's file. And it is, when it's downloaded, it is downloaded with a unique code. And you can, as an instructor, you can choose the setting on that. You can allow them to upload a plagiarized file if they upload somebody else's file. If I get Moreno's file and I want to upload that, the instructor can choose to either block it or allow that upload. If they allow the upload, it shows up in your gradebook as a plagiarized file, and it tells it, where it came, who it came from, which college, which class, which semester, all detailed information about that. So anyway, so there is a code embedded in there that does detect for plagiarism. So when after they download the file and start on it, then the instructions are down here, and it highlights the instructions because I know a lot of our students are splitting their screen or doing the instructions on their phone, and so it can make it hard to follow. So we have little check boxes and highlight, and they can go through and do all that again in the live application. I'm going to actually open up the file that. So here's the file. I'm in Office 365 and the file here, and I did some work on this previously. So I'm going to go ahead and after doing the instructions, and then I'm going to go ahead and upload the file. And close it here. Always a good practice to save and close before uploading. And then at this point, it's going to say, hey, are you ready to submit the file for grading or not? And if they're working on it, either on campus, on campus, and then they're going to go home and finish it, they can save it in the SimNet cloud and pull it down. They don't have to email it to themselves or on external storage device or even their cloud storage. They can save it on the SimNet cloud. I'm going to just say, go ahead and say, yes, submit the file. And what this is going to do is going to almost immediately give them feedback on it, which these are auto-graded projects in SimNet. So we call them the SimNet projects. And it gives them very detailed feedback on what they did correct and incorrect. So the screenshot or the solution file is over here. And this is the actual solution file, not the student's file, because sometimes it could be so messed up that it would be hard to display that. But it annotates everything of what's correct and what's not correct. And anything green is correct. Anything red is incorrect. correct. Anything blue is partial. You can drill down over here. All the numbers and letters relate to the instructions and sub-instruction numbers there. So what I did, I intentionally did something incorrect on here to show that we've worked over the years on the SimNet grader with Triad to eliminate cascading errors. And so what I mean by that is if there's an error up in instruction 3 that affects the worksheet or the Word document or the Excel database or whatever, PowerPoint presentation, if there's an error that affects that, it doesn't cascade down through the entire thing and make everything else wrong. So if they miss something early on, it's not going to affect everything else. We really work on isolating each skill throughout there, but it does give them really detailed feedback. I only did about half this project, so I scored pretty poorly on this, but it's great feedback. I tend to give on these projects, give my students 3 attempts on these so they can go back and redo, because I want them to master it. That's my goal. I'm not a punitive type instructor. I want them to really learn and take things with them, because especially like Excel is something they're going to use the rest of their life, no matter what business that they're in. So those are SimNet projects. The grader is super accurate. I tell my students if you're marked wrong on it for something, you did something wrong. So very few times will it mark something wrong that's not incorrect. I mean, almost never. And we fix those almost immediately. We allow for different types of formulas even. So for example, back in the 2016 content in SimNet, and, we were rolling into 365 also, we had if-else statements. So on some of the worksheets, they could do either a nested if statement or an if-else statement. Either would be acceptable. So we try to allow in the grader as many different iterations of answers, formulas, whatever as possible in there. So the grader is really, really, really accurate, surprisingly accurate. And, with technology, every iteration just continues to get better and better. So it's an amazingly accurate grader. So I hope that answers the question from previously.
Thank you so much. There was certainly, you've touched on there the fact that we do have a large number of sort of auto-gradable projects and activities, which is fantastic. And the quick question here is, will the system recognize, if a student was to put a comma in 1000 or full stops or? On formatting, if they were to type it in, Excel does that. I don't think that won't mess anything up. But they do, like on this worksheet, this in particular one, it said, hey, apply accounting format to these things and percent format to these with 2 decimal places. It's looking for that. I think on one of these, I think it was on this one, I intentionally didn't apply a format just to have something marked wrong early on. And so I didn't. On my document, I didn't apply accounting format. So it is looking for specific things also. Yeah. We do have in some of the other, like in PowerPoint and even Word, we do have some tolerances built in. So if they're inserting a picture or something here, we do have some tolerances built in as to where those go and stuff like that. So it's not overly picky where it's frustrating students, but like with Excel and Access especially, it's pretty cut and dry as to, outcome, input and outcome. So yeah, good question. Thank you so much. I'm going to sneak in one more question. With any of these projects that are auto-gradable, are you able to edit those or add your own questions or take some out?
So on the auto-gradable ones, no, those are set. But what we do with SimNet is we allow or have customer projects, or we call them community projects. So if you want to take an existing project, modify it, and that's usually what we suggest, is say, take one of the ones that we already have that's either in SimNet or in the book that's already really well developed, modify it, remove instructions, add instructions, however you want to do that, modify the start and solution file as needed, and then send those to us, and we will put them in as community projects. And I'll actually show you on the instructor side here, we have a whole bunch of projects that are community projects somewhere along here. And so there's the community projects that we have done so far. So, yeah. So yes, we can create some custom projects for you. So let me go through quickly. So typically my class, SimBook is the first thing, auto-graded in SimNet. Pause and practice projects I assign, which are in the SimBook. I hand grade those. I typically assign two projects per chapter for SimNet projects per chapter, and those are auto-graded. And then final thing that I do is a capstone project. So we also have capstone projects that I'll go ahead and go into Excel here. And we have a capstone project that are typically about every 4 chapters. So as you get into advanced level content, it might be after chapter 6 or after chapter 7, depending on the application. But the capstone projects are very much like the SimNet projects. They are auto-graded in SimNet. They're just more robust. They just have more steps to them. They cover multiple chapters worth of material. And we have capstone projects, auto-graded capstone projects in SimNet up to the office level, which is basically the first 4 chapters of Excel, Word, Access, 3 chapters of PowerPoint. We have additional capstone projects at the advanced level content. Those are outside of SimNet. So we have a robust amount of projects available for students. And so those are the four main things that I use in my classes: the SimBook, the pause and practice projects, the SimNet projects, and the capstone projects. We also have, I'm going to show you a few other things, I'll go through these fairly quickly, but we have exams and quizzes or exams, whatever you want to call them. Usually when I do it on 1 chapter, I just call it a quiz, and then multiple chapters an exam. But exams are simulated content, so I can go and they'd be very much like the SimBook, and it's going to load it front load so that there's no lag once they get going. But you're going to see it's very much like this. You can very much like the SimBook, simulated environment. Student can move around here. It's a very, very accurate grader on these. It's looking for something really specific to do. So change the font color to blue on there. So let's see if we can do that. Get the right color. There we go. Okay, answered it correctly. But these are the exams. You, as an instructor, can set them up however you want. They're really quickly to create. You can create one from a SimBook, Chapter 1 Excel. Just create and pull that content over. You can decide how long the students have, how many questions. You can filter by difficulty. You can adjust the questions. You can give them multiple attempts on the exam, multiple attempts per question. So much flexibility as far as how to do that. You can create these exams or quizzes on multiple chapters if you want. So those are nice. That's another great feature to have. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the exam. And another thing we have are what are called lessons. So lessons would be similar to a SimBook, except that you could build a custom lesson. So you could go in and say, hey, I just want to pull some content that relates to pivot tables and other types of tables, and filtering and all that. You could go through and pull that content and develop that. The lessons you have to build yourself. You tend to build it from the skills or the chapters you pull from the text, but it's going to look and feel again a lot like a SimBook. So the biggest difference between a lesson and a SimBook is a lesson you could choose and customize the content that you want for that. I'll use lessons occasionally for review of topics of more complex ones, like the pivot table, for example, and just put in a lesson there where they can go in and practice that a little bit more. But if you want to use lessons and make them all custom, you could do that. The issue I always tell faculty that I'm working with is that use the sim book unless there's really a compelling reason not to use the sim book. Because then the reason being is as we write this, we write things kind of in order and progression so that they build on top of each other. If you take pieces from a lesson, it could be a little bit fractured. And the second reason is that the sim books, if you assign the sim book, like a lesson, assign the sim book, the content that's in that chapter in the sim book is going to align with the SimNet projects. If you build a lesson and you're piecing it from different chapters and different content, the project may not specifically align to that lesson. So just know lesson is another option that you have in there. So, and one final thing, I think this is the final, I say that quite often, but final thing is what's called a sim path. And a sim path would be more about adaptive learning, where students can, you could set up a pretest. So an exam let's say chapter 2 of Excel here. You could set up a pretest on the content in that chapter, and then they have a lesson to kind of remediate anything that they didn't know from the pretest. Or if you as an instructor could totally customize it and say, no, I want them to do everything again. And even if they got it right, to reinforce that learning, and then take a post-test at the end. And again, you can customize that as the instructor as to whether you want that post-test to cover just the content that they missed on the pre-test, or include the content that they have already mastered from the pre-test and the lesson part of it. So that's a sim path, and that's most of the different items that are in there. So just a quick review: sim book, one-to-one content with the printed textbook, with the interactive show me, guide me, let me try learning activities in there. Pause and practice projects are within the chapter, 3 to 5 per chapter. They build on each other. They're not auto-graded in SimNet, but really good. I think it's one of the most valuable learning tools in the book, and I do assign that to my students, my Excel students, my Access students, my Word students. I typically don't teach PowerPoint, but once in a while. And pause and practice projects, SimNet projects. Again, we have three per chapter at the office level, and I think we're almost there at the complete level, the advanced level for all the applications of 3 per chapter, 1 guided and 2 independent. Then you have also the exams that are available. So we can, I think I clicked on the wrong one there. So exams, and again, single chapter, few questions, longer exams, all of that, and then SimPath. So those are the main objects that are available in SimNet. One additional one are what are called resources, and these are some videos I've created that show how to complete a sim book, how to complete a pause and practice project, how to complete a SimNet project. Short little videos. They're on YouTube. You can find them if you type in my name, or we can make available a resource guide that we have that has all the resources for the textbook. So resources. One other thing that I do want to talk about here is we have credentialing. So I think you might have seen that along the way. We have different digital credentials that students can earn. We have a white credential, which is if they complete the sim books, all of the let me tries in the sim books for the first 4 chapters, what we call the office level content of Word, Excel, Access, PowerPoint, but any one of those applications. So if they completed the sim books for chapters 1 through 4 of Excel, they would get a white belt. When they complete the Capstone project after chapter 4 with 90% accuracy or above, they get the yellow belt. Purple belt is when they complete all the sim books for the advanced level. So all of the applications, we have advanced level content of so we have Word, we have a 12 chapter book in Word, Excel 11 chapters, Access 10 chapters, PowerPoint 7 chapters. But when they complete all the sim books, they get a purple belt, and then the final digital credential is a exam. So we have a black belt exam that's pre-built in SimNet for a digital credential as well. So students can get those credentials, share them on. Let me see if I can get to my desktop here. I had an email come in that had digital credential information. So students would receive this information and they can view their badge, and it shows information about what skills that were covered in this particular purple belt here. All these are the different skills. They could post it on any of these LinkedIn or any of the digital platforms there, verify that it is an actual credential, and so on, so on, and so on. So anyway, the digital credentials are nice. If you're on LinkedIn, if you just search, if you type in McGraw Hill digital credentials, you'll see, hundreds and hundreds of them. And as an instructor, as I go in, I can see, actually, I think I'm in my admin account, so I won't see as many, but it would show the number of credentials. I'm in as my admin account, so it doesn't show how many credentials have been, not too many have been earned there. I have hundreds and hundreds if I'm in my actual account, and of students who have earned these digital credentials. And any other questions along the way? I know I'm going fast through all this stuff, and I'm looking at my clock getting nervous here.
No. Thank you so much. Well, you've just given me a great segue, because there was a question around, were you showing the student view, and is it possible to see a little bit of what's on the instructor side?
Absolutely. So yeah, this is the instructor side. This is kind of the dashboard here. And basically in SimNet, I always tell everybody, so work from left to right. So look left, go middle, go right, and these are all the different content areas. So you have your users area, which is kind of our dashboard and your own account information. I'm in as an admin here, so I have instructors, so I could add in adjunct instructors and students, all of that information there. Classes area is kind of where I drive from. So here's the class that we've been looking at, and so I go, again, left, middle, right, and I can go and edit this class and add content. So everything that you were just seeing there, the exams that are in there, I put in there. I can add exams. So you have containers of what's available and what's assigned. And then there are many details. So let me go to like a project, for example. And as I go to edit this, I have lots of, start date, due date, end date, all of that. I can decide how many attempts they get, whether or not I want to enable a timer, when I want that visual feedback that I showed you to display. I typically have it after the first attempt because I want them learning. But like on a Capstone project, you might not. You might say, well, I'm not going to display visual feedback because I want them to show that they've mastered this information. Yeah, you could do all sorts of things. You could assign a late penalty. Lots of customization on each of the different types of gradable objects. A lot of customization that you can that you have. So, any other specific things on the instructor side?
Well, a question there, I think you touched on it earlier, but a question that's for you and possibly for me as well. Does it sync with Blackboard or Noodle?
Great question. There is integration with both Blackboard and Noodle. So this one-time single sign-on that you do as an instructor from your LMS, signing on with SimNet, integrating that. And then in Blackboard, it will integrate the assignments in there. So the deep linking. Moodle, I don't think it does deep linking, but it integrates the grades and links across to the students and gets them into SimNet from Moodle. So it does link and integration, and it works really smoothly. I integrate with all my classes. I use Canvas And it is just such a smooth process. And students do a one-time pairing from their LMS. First time they click on a SimNet assignment, it'll ask them to do that pairing, create their account, the one-time handshake, and then from then on, they can go right from the LMS to SimNet. All that information transfers back and forth.
Fantastic. I think the second part of that question may well have been for me, and that was, can we test this solution? And the answer to that is absolutely. Please get in touch with us. We're really happy to show you that or involve you in testing that out with your students. So that's a definite. And actually, I think that's a good lead into another question that we have, which is, could you share with us, you've obviously been using it for a while, but anything that you or your colleagues have noticed around student engagement or their performance in the courses using this versus, not using an online solution or doing sort of different types of labs?
Yeah, I think especially over this last year, these last crazy 9 months, we've seen many people incorporating some sort of digital content into their courses just to help student engagement. And I find in my classes, students love SimNet. The automatic feedback that they get on the SimBooks, on the SimNet projects, on the Capstone projects, wonderful, and they really do learn. It's amazing. And I think Rachel, who I think is on, we were talking about a white paper that she did on the efficacy of SimNet and student engagement and learning and all that. And so that might be something to share that either she could share or get that out to them. But I think you'll find your students will love it. I mean, it really is a great product. I've been, again, using it for years, work with hundreds of professors around the states who use it and just absolutely love it. So I think you'll find it's a great product. And somebody who had asked about testing it, absolutely get in, dig around, do some assignments like a student would do. If you need help, I'd be glad to help you build a course in whichever system. Each school gets their own unique SimNet system, and I think it's the same. I think it'll be the same for you guys over there, where you'll have your own unique URL. You could build your courses in there, but I'd be glad to jump in and help you build courses, a sample sandbox course that you could play around in. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. A really great question from Laurie has just come in there. Are there variable exams or projects settings that would prevent collusion in online exams or, help prevent cheating?
Yeah, so for the projects, the embedded code is unique to the students. So those, as an instructor, especially when I used to teach, back before COVID, when I was teaching on campus and all that, I would allow plagiarized files to be uploaded and then have I could tell who they came from typically in the class, and I had a little heart-to-heart, face-to-face talk with the students and encourage them on how important integrity is. Now, in a remote environment, I've just blocked it. So I tell students, hey, if it won't let you upload your file, you're uploading the wrong file. And that's a little message will come up, kind of an innocuous message. It just says, hey, it doesn't say you're cheating. It just says you're uploading the incorrect file. As far as exams go, it is hard. I mean, ultimately, could somebody take an exam for somebody else? Yes. I don't know that there's a way to do it. There are some of those screen reader things, that will show the student's face and all that. But on the exams, what I encourage instructors to do is, if you're giving multiple attempts on the exam, or even if you're only giving one attempt, make it pull from a pool of questions. So if you say, okay, all of Chapter 2 of Excel, we're going to pull all those questions over there, which might be, 50 or 60 questions, and then have it randomly choose 25 of those questions. So then it's pulling from a pool of questions which may not be the same as a student sitting right next to them. So they're not going to get the same exam, same questions, same order, all of that. So we do have some things built in to help with that. I don't know that we could ever 100% eliminate, students are going to always find a way around something. So yeah, but we try to do the best we can.
I think we all know that can be the case, and certainly it's a battle to keep up with students, but there's some great things that you've mentioned there that would be really helpful in terms of providing faculty with a little bit more surety around using things online. I'm just going back to my list of questions here. So I know we had a few people on from our library or academic skills departments today, and a question coming through: is this something that that staff could also get access to? Would that be helpful for for not just students but for other members of faculty or teams?
Oh, absolutely. As faculty members, you can get an account, and get on and go through this stuff like a student. So absolutely, yeah.
And I think, and I'm not sure if we touched on that earlier, I think it's a question around, even if a student wasn't doing a specific course, are they able to kind of go in and upskill themselves on certain areas that they were, having trouble with?
Great. That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up, because actually I kind of left that off my list. And so as long as they have a access code or has had a course at some point in SimNet, they, in their library area, and I'm going to actually go there real quickly. So in the library area, they have lifelong access to all the products that they had an access code to. So a lifelong. So it will stay here. So they could go back at any point and, go into Excel. And I get students that, a few semesters after they've taken my class, hey, Professor Ardell, what was that SimNet thing that we did? What's the URL to get there? And so I'll send it to them. So they're polishing up on whatever in Excel. So yes, they do have lifelong access to that. With that said, it's not going to be, the SimBook, they're not going to have like projects assigned to them like they would in the class. They could still go through the projects in the textbook and practice all of that stuff, but it is going to be a little bit different than a class content area where you as an instructor assign specific projects or exams and all that. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for answering that. I can see one other question in there. Just how would you compare this to solutions that we often, use in classrooms, like, LinkedIn Learning or other kind of guidelines on how to use Excel or a Microsoft project application? Sorry.
Yeah, and some of those, there's some great tutorial videos out there. The LinkedIn Learning has some great stuff also. There's some good content out there. YouTube, you could search for anything and find anything. The beauty of something like this, a class, let's say an Excel class, let's say you're going to do a complete Excel class, a full, 11 chapters or 10 or 11 chapters out of Excel. The beauty with something like this is just the breadth of what they're exposed to. So they get exposed to all sorts of different functions and features that students didn't even know existed. And I think most of us realize that, how big Excel is and how big Access and Word. There's things I'm still learning in some of these products, and it just exposes them to that. So almost a survey course, so that at some point when the students are learning, again, going back to my transferability of skills, I want them to learn this stuff, know what's available. So at some point, hey, you know what? We did some crazy great pivot table stuff or some Power Queries. Hey, I'm going to look up how to do that, either, in SimNet, in the SimBook, or look at a YouTube video. So I think one of the things, our textbooks, SimNet, just the offerings that we have, just show students the breadth of what's out there, because you don't know what you don't know. If they didn't know there is a Power Query feature available in in SimNet wouldn't even know what it is. You wouldn't even know what to look up on YouTube if you didn't know something about it. So being exposed to the breadth of what's available in these applications, I think, is one of the really good aspects about that, and a really kind of a competitive advantage over other things that are out there, other products that are out there, such as the LinkedIn Learning and YouTube. I mean, it's all out there, but if you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to look up something.
I imagine too, just not really being able to see whether your students had viewed something or watching them apply it may also be a little more difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a great point, Morena, is just the integration with the LMS and all of that, and being able to go in, just the reporting that's available, the grade book, all that detailed information is available in SimNet. And it really is it's really a well done, robust program. We always say, keep it simple. That's SimNet hey, we try to keep it really simple on especially on the student side. It's really straightforward. I get so few questions from my students about SimNet. I mean, it's just I'm giving some tutorial videos on how to complete each of the different types of projects I assign before we start. But, so anyway, it is a really good project. And one thing I will show you, and we can make this available as well, we have a ton of resources available for the In Practice series. I have a shared OneDrive folder that I call Keys to the Kingdom. That has everything, all the student data files, solution files, instructor PowerPoint, instructor manuals, quiz, test banks. I mean, everything you can imagine is in there, as well as we have a website, officeinpractice.com. You can go look at that. We have tons of videos and instructor resources, student resources, Capstone projects. But anyway, I can make this available to your team or over there, so that maybe you could send this out with a follow-up. But this resource guide is really, really helpful. A lot of the handouts or videos that I make, and there's a lot there. And the shared OneDrive folder it's the Keys to the Kingdom, has everything in there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I can see we're doing quite well. It's about 2 minutes until the hour now. I hopefully think that we've managed to get most of the questions, but if you do have any more, feel free to pop those in the chat now. In the meantime, I just would like to thank you so much for your time and expertise running through this. It's great to hear, and I could hear woven through how you're sort of overcoming some of those challenges, like, being online. We're hearing a lot from students, a lot of fear and anxiety around using digital platforms. So the fact that you're not getting many questions and answers, or many questions in from students is testament itself, I think, to making your life a little easier.
Yeah, and that's our goal. Our goal with creating this product and the SimNet platform, not only to create a really good learning tool for students, learning and evaluation tool for students, but also to help you out, to support you as an instructor, because we have, again, I'm in the classroom full time like most of you, and we have so much to do with committee work and all the other things. This does definitely help out, and that's a great point, Morena.
Well, thank you very much. Just a final question there. Absolutely. Certificate of attendance will be mailed out afterwards, along with the recording of today's presentation. And thank you very much, Professor Dell, because we're going to add in that those additional resources from you as well. So I think we've managed to get all the questions in. So I just wanted to say again, thank you so much. It was a very, very early start from you, and we really appreciate you. 4 a.m. your time to run through this with us. And to everybody, we really appreciate you attending today. We hope you found it useful. We've got contact details there. Please write us or let us know if you have more questions or would like to see anything else covered. And thank you so much again, Professor Nordell.
You're very welcome. You all have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Please get some sleep.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.